Hey everybody, it is time once again for a 2021-2022 season preview. And today we're going to be talking about a team that has been a perennial contender since they've come into the NHL. Once again, we're in the Final Four last year. And I've had a pretty interesting offseason, definitely some changes made, but still looking like a very strong team heading into the new season. And that is the Vegas Golden Knights. So before we begin, I just ask you to please subscribe and hit that thumbs up. It helps so much and is greatly appreciated. But let's get into it here. And before we look ahead, we've got to look back. Vegas last season was one of the best teams in the NHL. They went 40-14-2 on the year, 82 points, which tied them with Colorado for the most in the league. They finished second in the Pacific, though, losing the tiebreaker to the Avalanche, which was regulation wins. But nonetheless, Vegas was a President's Trophy level team last year. They actually won the most games in the NHL with 40 wins in 56 games. And they went all the way to the Final Four before coming up a little bit short against Montreal, who went on to the Stanley Cup Finals. Vegas was one of the best offensive teams in the NHL last season, scoring 3.39 goals per game. Wasn't top of the league, but it was very high up there, and they had no problem putting the puck in the back of the net. But even where they shined even more so than offensively was defensively, where Vegas was the best defensive team in the NHL last season. They gave up the fewest goals, just 2.18 goals against per game last year. A really remarkable number. They were incredibly good at keeping the puck out of their own net. Power play was not great. This has kind of been a theme with Vegas. Is for some reason the power play just hasn't been great the last couple years. And last year it was only 17.8% effective, which definitely a pretty mediocre number there. However, their penalty kill was absolutely outstanding, just like their team defense as a whole. 86.8% on the penalty kill last year. A remarkable number, just like their goals against in general. So this offseason, Vegas definitely had a cap crunch issue. They still spending right up to the salary cap, and it's they're a cap crunch team without a doubt, to say the least. And that showed in what they were able to do this offseason. Obviously, the biggest thing is the subtraction of Marc-Andre Fleury going to Chicago. They could not afford to pay Marc-Andre Fleury $7 million this season because of their salary cap situation. So they essentially traded him to Chicago for nothing and just needed to open up that cap space. They also traded away forward Ryan Reeves to New York, forward Thomas Nosek left in free agency, and then defenseman Nick Holden and forward Cody Glass are no longer with the team as well. So obviously there were some pieces taken away here. Obviously, the big one being Marc-Andre Fleury, without a doubt, that being the biggest impactful subtraction from this team. As far as additions go, they were able to get forward Nolan Patrick from Philadelphia in exchange basically for Cody Glass. Well, that was a 3-team deal, but they basically replaced Cody Glass with Nolan Patrick. And obviously Patrick is coming off a pretty lousy season with the Flyers last year, and a change of scenery might do him good. We'll have to see how that all works out. They also brought in Evgeny Dadonov from the Ottawa Senators. So another scoring winger there coming in for Vegas. And he was one of their, biggest offseason additions. Probably as far as impact on the lineup, he'll probably end up being the biggest. They also got forward Brett Howden from the New York Rangers. Howden is, kind of a bottom six forward. He's pretty much a third line level guy. We'll see where he fits into this Vegas lineup. But he's coming in. A change of scenery might do him good as well. And they have a new backup goaltender, Laurent Brossoit. Obviously, with Fleury gone, Robin Lehner becomes the starter, and they needed somebody to back up Robin Lehner, so they get Laurent Brossoit from the Winnipeg Jets. So those were their additions. They also made a couple of very significant re-signings, bringing guys back that could have left, and that was Alec Martinez on the back end. They were able to agree to a new contract with him, and they, also were able to re-sign Matthias Janmark. So the money that they did have available, a good amount of that was put towards re-signing those two guys. Now it is time to look at my projected roster for the Vegas Golden Knights this year. And obviously, this is a team that is very much up against it when it comes to the salary cap. However, they are going to be getting some LTIR relief to start the season, and that is because of Alex Tuch, who is going to miss the first half of the year with an injury. He'll be on LTIR, and that will actually give Vegas a little bit more money to work with so that they'll at least be cap compliant to start the year. It's going to be really interesting what happens when Tuch is ready to return, though, because unless they have somebody else on LTIR, they're going to be over the cap when Tuch comes back. So that is definitely going to be something to watch this year. But he is not going to be there to start the season, which is why I don't have him listed under the forwards and I have him on the depth, because he's going to miss at least the first 4 months of the year. So up front, they'll have Mark Stone, William Karlsson, Max Pacioretty, Riley Smith, Jonathan Marchessault, Chandler Stevenson, newcomer Evgeny Dadonov, newcomer Nolan Patrick, returning Matthias Janmark, Brett Howden, Nicholas Waugh, William Carrier, and Keegan Colasar. And I don't think there are any surprises there. Those guys all played significant NHL games last season. And, obviously Patrick is new, Dadonov is new, Howden is new. But guys like Waugh, Carrier, and Colasar, they all played a good number of NHL games last year. So I would fully expect them all to make the team this year. On defense, obviously Alex Pietrangelo, Shea Theodore, Alec Martinez are kind of your big three on the back end there for this team. And you've got Braden McNabb. Then you've got younger guys like Nicholas Hague, Zach Whitecloud, and Dylan Coghlan are kind of rounding out this decor as your top 7 guys. And then in goal, as I mentioned, Robin Lehner is now the starter with Fleury gone, and Laurent Brossoit was brought in to back him up. On the depth side of things, obviously you've got Alex Tuch starting the year on LTIR. Again, when he comes back, it's going to be interesting because this team is going to have to do something to be cap compliant. And also, as far as, who it comes out of the lineup when Tuch comes back, that's going to be something to watch as well with this team. Because I don't know if it'll be Colasar, but you kind of want that grit and toughness on the fourth line. I don't know, what kind of year does Nolan Patrick have? I feel like Nicholas Waugh pretty much solidified his spot in the lineup, but somebody's got to come out when Tuch returns. That's not a pressing issue. You're not going to really have to deal with that until probably January or February, but it's definitely something to watch. Then Jack Dugan is a really, really interesting prospect that they have. Now, I got to watch him for 2 years at Providence College. I watched him light up the score sheet at PC. Jack Dugan is going to be an NHL player sooner rather than later. Last year was his first professional season. He played in the AHL, and he was almost a point-per-game player in the AHL last year in his first pro season. I think he had 33 points in 37 games. So Jack Dugan is pushing to be in an NHL lineup, and he's definitely one of the best young players that Vegas has coming up. And he's a guy that if Vegas runs into some injuries this year, he is definitely going to have a good shot to play some NHL games. And I'm really excited to see him at the NHL level. So definitely a depth guy that could play in the NHL at some point this season. Patrick Brown, he's played NHL games the past couple of years. He's a fourth line type guy, so if they need a fourth liner to replace like a Colasar or a Carrier or someone like that, then Patrick Brown has been doing that for the past couple of years. And then Peyton Krebs. Krebs is a little bit younger than Jack Dugan, but Krebs is another highly touted prospect for this team. And I still think he's probably a year or two away from being a regular in the NHL lineup. But again, if they start losing guys, especially down the middle where they do not have a lot of center depth, Krebs is absolutely a guy that, could be needed depth-wise if guys start to go down. On the defensive side of things, honestly, it's really interesting because a lot of the guys that would have been, depth defensemen for this team a year or two ago are guys that are now pretty much like standards on the team, like Nicholas Hague, Dylan Coughlin, Zach Whitecloud. Like this 2 years ago, those were their depth guys. Those were their guys that were getting called up. But because of the salary cap and because of what's happened with this team's roster, those guys are now, more regular. They're already on the team. They're regulars in the lineup. And as far as depth goes, it's going to be interesting to see which defensemen that are down in the AHL, which young guys kind of separate themselves and make themselves higher on the depth chart and first on the call-up list. One that really sticks out to me is Leighton Ahak. Coming out of Ohio State. Very, very good defenseman. Very consistent player in college. Obviously, a college player that is, mature and a little bit older. So I definitely think he's going to be pretty high on the call-up list. And Connor Corcoran's another guy that definitely looking at what he's done at the lower levels, he's probably going to be a guy that if Vegas goes down 2 or 3 defensemen, could be looking at a call-up. And then their third goaltender, probably Logan Thompson. He's played a couple of NHL games in the past. He's kind of been a call-up in the past. So obviously they're hoping that Leonard and Brossoit are healthy all year and that they don't need a third goaltender. But if they do, I would assume it's going to be Logan Thompson getting the call-up. But that is my projected roster for the Vegas Golden Knights, and obviously there are always some more depth guys that are there that maybe with a big year in the AHL could work themselves into call-up territory. We'll have to wait and see how that goes. But all in all, Vegas, obviously, losing Fleury is going to hurt. They don't have that, league best tandem in goal anymore. But at the same time, they were able to keep Martinez. They've got a good scoring group on the wings. You look at guys like Stone, Pacioretty, Smith, Marchessault. Even without Tuck, they now have Dadonov. They now have Janmark, and even without Dadonov or without Tuck, they have guys that can score playing the wings. Center depth, always kind of a question with this team. Obviously William Karlsson's fantastic, and Chandler Stevenson really kind of showed himself to be a top 6 center last year, which I wasn't, sure if he was going to be able to do that, and he did. And now they got Nolan Patrick. They brought in Brett Howden. They've got Nicholas Waugh. So, I mean, they definitely have more center depth this year than they did last year, but it's still a little bit of a question with this team. And you'll have to wait and see how it all works out. But all in all, Vegas should still be a very good team. They play in the Pacific, and I've talked about how weak I think the Pacific Division is this year. And Vegas, I think, absolutely should be the best team in the Pacific Division. So I would expect another very strong season from the Golden Knights, and they definitely look to have continued success that they have had early in their franchise's history here. But with that, like, comment, share, subscribe, follow on social media. All those links are down in the description. If you'd like to further support the channel, the links to our Patreon, merchandise store, donation link, and channel memberships down in the description as well. Keep spreading the word about this channel. Let's keep this thing growing. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll talk to you guys soon.